right. It's been a while since we had a live stream here at NewCamp, and I couldn't be happier with the two guests that we're having today to kick off the new school season. September is usually the time that students go back to school, and I know that's the case for my kids. Um, I'm really pleased to have both Linda Oyolu and Rekha Niveda, technical curriculum developers, joining us today. Hello, Rika. Hello, Linda. How are you doing?
Hi, Ludo. We're doing well on this nice Friday.
All right.
We're doing well.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll get to know you quite a bit over the next hour. I want to tell everyone who's listening, since it's been a while, um, what this stream is about. We are lucky enough to have a partnership with Google Cloud and the learning organization at Google that really actually enables our students to have access to labs, Google Cloud labs, in our curriculum, but also for women to have access to a 25% discount scholarship. And as part of that partnership, I've had the pleasure of the last year to really welcome a ton of different guest speakers from Google. And today it's going to be very exciting and interesting with you, Linda and Rika, to really look at a job in tech from a different angle and kind of a different lens. Because many students, when they think about landing a job in tech, they think about writing code, solving bugs, and being in a part of an engineering team. And you can show that there's another way, there's a different path to get a job in tech. So maybe to get us started, would you mind describing to us what your job is about? Your title is Technical Curriculum Manager. What does it mean? What do you do actually at Google? What does a technical curriculum manager do at Google?
Yeah, Rika, do you want to start off or do you want me to?
You can start off and I can
Okay,
tackle on.
sure. Yeah, so we're technical curriculum developers, and basically we create training that goes for customers. So, Ludo, you mentioned the NewCamp curriculum includes labs on Google Cloud. Um, you know, w- Technical curriculum developers, or TCDs, are the people who create a lot of that content. The goal is basically to help customers better understand how to use Google products and sort of how to leverage the cloud, in their day-to-day tasks in their roles at the highest level. I guess that's it. So we develop for on-demand training, but we also create courses that can be delivered in real time by instructors, either in person or virtually as well. Yeah, not sure, Reka, if you want to tag on anything there.
I think you explained pretty much at the very high level. That is what we do, develop technical trainings on various products. I think, as a team, focus a lot on Google Cloud products in particular.
Yeah.
Our team is part of doing both the videos that go into the training and also the labs that are part of hands-on experience.
Great. And for everyone listening, if you have any questions for Linda or Rika, you know what to do. We're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And on each of those platforms, you have access to the chat window. So type in your question. I see Jackson here is saying hi. Hello, Jackson. So don't hesitate. Type in your question. I know it's been a while. We're kind of all rusty. We're getting back into this. There you go. And so we have a question here from Michael. But actually, before we get to that question, which is a very interesting one from Michael, um, can you give us an example? Like, what is the most recent course that you produced?
You want to go first, Linda?
You can take it. Yeah.
Okay. The very recent training that I was currently part of was that recently released was part of the training where we were developing trainings that was focused for AWS and Azure audiences who were already trained at what cloud means and how things are implemented on Azure and AWS side of things. So we developed a training to help those learners understand what Google Cloud basically means. So that was the recent training I was part of.
Very interesting. How about you, Linda?
Yeah, so Google Cloud also, in certain ways, includes Google Workspace under the broader portfolio.
Mhm.
And so the recent courses that I worked on were Google Meet and Google Chat. So it's creating training that really encompassed all the new features that have come out since the start of the pandemic, when everyone went into virtual work, and the courses kind of now cover a lot of those interesting features. Raising your hand during a meeting, and being able to see like the information, like your meeting details and all the linked attachments without leaving the tab that you're in for the meeting.
Mm.
All those random features that our customers might not fully be familiar with. So yeah, so it's a pretty broad
So
portfolio.
helping them become advanced users of the platform, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. So let's actually bring in that question from Michael Turner here. Um, so there's training for Google Cloud, and then there's the technical documentation for Google Cloud. How do you write the documentation also for Google Cloud, or how do the two come together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say they're pretty distinct. Document, it kind of depends on the company, but I think at Google, the title of someone who develops documentation would be a technical writer. And so they're really creating like the sort of depends on the product or the particular part, but just a reference guide, right? Whereas
Mhm.
the training we develop is really comprehensive, and you're able to, especially with the labs, you're able to get that real world exposure without having to use your own Google Cloud account.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a course typically is more engaging. There's videos and quizzes. The documentation is usually more dry, right? It's like these are the facts, and without trying necessarily to embellish it or target different users, I guess. Um, so the question that comes to mind as you're describing, those different products, Recap, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and you, Linda, Meet and Chat. How technical do you have to be to write something about those technologies? Like, do you have to know them super well? Like, do you have to be an AWS certified person to talk about or write about AWS? How do you handle that?
Um, I would say you have to be pretty technical, but not really an SME in that area of expertise. While I was doing that training, I think I have a very solid understanding of Google Cloud concepts and products, functionalities, and features, but not necessarily AWS and Azure. But it's pretty much the same technology. So when we are going about developing trainings, we do refer to a lot of documentation, reference materials that will be given by
Mhm.
SMEs. We interview SMEs
I see.
and understand from their perspective, who's also an AWS expert now moving to Google Cloud, what are the things that they want to learn, what are the things that they'll be interested in consuming a training like this. So a lot goes into it. So it is technical, but not necessarily next SME level expertise required.
And SME standing for subject matter expert.
Yes, sorry for that. Yeah, subject
No,
matter.
no, that's okay. How about you, Linda? I mean, I know you have a software engineering background. Is that super helpful in also being a curriculum manager? And is that actually required to be a curriculum manager?
So it's not required but I do find it can be pretty helpful depending on the course.
Hmm.
Within the workspace portfolio, definitely it helps to have used Workspace before, for instance, if you're going to develop a course. But I mean, even as I was kind of, as Reka mentioned, like as I was developing the major update to the course, and I was speaking to subject matter experts across Google, I was myself learning at certain points, right? Like, oh, there's this feature that just came out and I wasn't aware of, or like, yes, we use Meet and Chat on our in our day to day roles, but I felt and so I had that good strong understanding, but being able to really talk to people who are deeply involved in the development of the development and marketing, I guess, of the features and products gave me just like a better understanding. But for the core, yeah, I wouldn't say you need to have been a software engineer, but it's certainly important to have had exposure to cloud technologies, particularly for the courses like the ones Rekha creates.
Gotcha. Yeah. So if you're looking for a job in technical curriculum management, you'll probably have greater chances of getting that job if you have technical skills than someone who would not have technical skills, right? It's not a requirement, but in a crowded market, you'll do better. I want to bring in that question from Susan here, which is more about NewCamp, but I think you can probably chime in if you have an opinion on that. So is full web and mobile development Python same as pursuing a software engineering certification? Also, which is the most in demand for job? So Susan, typically full web and mobile development are not associated with Python, I would say. They're more associated with JavaScript. And if you're thinking about our curriculum, that would be actually the JavaScript to React Native development path. So not Python. And Python is more on the back end. So that's the other bootcamp that we have. That's the back end Python, SQL, DevOps bootcamp. And it's never really the same as pursuing a software engineering certification, which I will associate that more, and I'd love to hear your thoughts with having a computer science degree, for example, right? There isn't such a thing as a software engineering certification out there. Maybe Google will have certifications, but on specific products. So the closest to a software engineering certification, I think, will be a degree in computer science. And now to the last question, which is the most in demand for jobs? I will say that the answer varies based on where you live and the local economy. But by and large, I think there's been a lot of emphasis on front end and full stack, and a lot of bootcamp have really and a lot of people are gravitating around that. Back end and DevOps, probably less in the last few years, and you may actually find better luck in specializing in the cloud, for example, and DevOps than being another, I would say, full stack web and mobile development, although both have opportunities out there. Do you have, Linda and Rekha, I'll pull the question again up. Do you have thoughts in that space in terms of, the different types of jobs in tech and which one is more in demand? And what do you think also of a computer science degree, for example?
I think it's all region specific, like you mentioned, what the demand is in that particular area. Also, software engineering certificate, I think it's the first time I'm hearing. I don't think there's such thing as software engineering certificate, but I could be wrong. I've heard language specific, like Python certification people would do, but not software engineering certification.
Well, yeah, I think sometimes like boot camps or different websites might, at the end of it, you get a sort of credential of sorts. So, like when students finish NewCamp, is there like a certificate they get?
There's a certificate.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people confusing the terminology of, a certificate is really a piece of paper. You put it on your wall. Certification has a different meaning in the industry, right? It's you go through a formal test, and you have to pass the test, and it's also usually ISV driven. So you're going to be certified by Google, by Microsoft, but a coding bootcamp is not going to certify you per se.
Yeah. But that said, obviously we're curriculum developers at Google, so we're most familiar with, the Google Cloud certifications and offerings there. So, I think cloud, as Ludo mentioned, would be, if you're looking for a credential, looking at cloud would be an interesting place to, if it piques your curiosity.
That's right. We had a tagline around the cloud. I'm going to forget it, but we did a very nice play on words. Oh, that'll come back to me, but we did something interesting. But yeah, cloud definitely is on the rise. I mean, it's been on the rise for years, obviously, um, but something that not a lot of people are specializing in, especially when you think coding bootcamp graduates. So definitely something to spend time on. Let's bring in another question here, and then we'll resume the conversation from Vin this time, and maybe you'll have personal experiences as well to respond to that. Small town, should I relocate to a larger city to build a career in tech? So that pretty much I can meet with people in person and get a job this way. What have been your experience? I'd love to answer that question by asking you, Rika and Linda. Well, first, are you coming from a small city or not, or big city? And were you in those shoes of wondering, do I need to move?
So I'll just start off by saying that, we're a very distributed team. Like, I'm based in Washington D.C. Rake is in Dublin. So um I don't, in the world where there are an increasing number of remote opportunities, I don't know that one necessarily needs to relocate. But I think Reka might have an interesting take on that, given her own journey.
For me, fortunately, I was born and raised in Bangalore, which was one of the metropolitan cities back in India. Plethora of opportunities, a lot of openings, and so not sure. I do not have experience coming from a small town, but I think with now currently, I think since pandemic, like Linda mentioned, it has opened doors for remote roles. I think people currently are working for big companies, but also still residing in roles that are far from cities. So things have changed. I think times have changed. But for beginners and students, I think I would recommend having that on campus, on office, in office experiences, so they can learn from each other. I think that is very important in their initial years of their career, to learn from your peers and you have someone to lean on to and understand how things work and execute.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think back to the question, you want to find those in-person engagements. It's important, even if you're working remotely, but you don't have to relocate to get there. Meaning, you live in a small city, but are there small businesses that are in need of going on the cloud, and can you start to freelance locally and build your expertise like that, and do get those in-person engagements and those connections, and then as you evolve in your career, yeah, maybe consider if that's the right move for you to get the next job. Um, and Linda, apparently someone is quite interesting, maybe to organizing a meetup. Immaculate
Oh,
Aesthetics.
nice. Yeah, love the
uh,
DC area. Yeah.
there you go. And apparently we did well answering Vince's question. So let's go back to you, Rika and Linda. So now that we know what you're doing, um, can you let's go back at the beginning, I will say, and what made you decide to become a technical curriculum developer? What was your first, career aspiration? Let's say when you were in college, for example, did you know already that you wanted to get in tech or not? And would you mind actually bringing us back to the very beginning? What did you graduate, or what was your degree about, and how did you get there? And I'll ask Linda first, and then Rika, you can go.
Sure, sure. Um, so during college, I majored in computer science, and I also studied political science. And I wasn't really sure which direction I wanted to take, because those are very different, fields.
Oh yeah.
But I kind of thought about, something like data science, where maybe you could have that, it could be applicable to technology, but then maybe also still applied, depending on the context, to political data or something like that. But I ultimately ended up going the computer science route. Just I got some advice from a professor, like, it might be helpful just to cement your technical skills, um, this was coming from a political science professor. He was like, it might be helpful to cement your
Really.
technical skills before you, like right after undergrad, before you kind of switch towards the political science route.
I hope
And
there was no hidden message behind that.
no, no. There was no, there was no hidden message. I don't think. But that's funny. I'm like thinking about it now.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was kind of my interest. I was seeking a wide. I was kind of open as far as what roles I pursued after college. So my senior year of college, I looked at software engineering roles, some consulting, and business analyst, and I realized like at the time in which it was to really make decision about what company am I going to go with. I was like I think I specifically want to cement that software development
Mhm.
skill set. So I worked for Capital One for a few years in the DC area as a software engineer. Did some data stuff and DevOps as well. They had like a rotational program, so I was able to have like a wide exposure to things. And one of the requirements of the program was that you become AWS certified. And so I, got some of those certifications, and then I also had the opportunity to train other engineers at Capital One on cloud, and that was kind of when I
Oh, pretty
started
cool.
getting interested about the curriculum development skill set. And a couple roles later, where I still had that training exposure, eventually led me to Google as a technical curriculum developer.
Also, very gradual evolution between coding and teaching and building content. Very
Yeah.
interesting. How about you, Rika?
Mine is, I think, a totally different story. I was raised in a family where women education wasn't that encouraged. Okay, but my parents were not the same. They definitely advocated to educating me. So, but I did not have family or relatives to lean around to give me career advice on what I need to choose and how I need to pursue. My dad runs a textile business. He wanted me to pursue fashion designing, which is another
That sounds pretty
unconventional
cool as
field,
well.
which is another unconventional field, and definitely did not pique my interest. I'm in a hoodie, clearly not not into those fields. But then I really had good grades. And back in India, I think the conventional approach is either you choose medicine or engineering
Mhm.
if you have great grades. And I went by rule of elimination. I tried going around what I do not want to do, and then picked. I knew medicine was not something I was interested in, and would definitely not do great with needles. So I picked engineering, and again, there I specialized. Back then, access to computer was quite limited. It kind of seemed like a luxury to have a laptop at your place 12 years back then. So somehow I was like, oh, you get access to a system and you get access to internet. I was very interested in doing information technology. I picked information science as my major and did an engineering there. As I pursued my engineering, I think in my final year, we were looking for, of course, job opportunities. And over a period of time, although I had really great grades with Java, C Sharp, and all the programming languages, I knew for some reason coding and testing was not something I want to do. I
Mhm.
was really interested in software engineering. Wherever there was openings on campus hire for engineering, I used to not even show up for those interviews. I was very passionate about teaching since I think I was a child. If anybody used to ask me, what do you want to become, grow up and become, I would say I want to be a teacher. So I definitely wanted to do something to do with learning and development. There was this very unique opportunity that came on campus at my college, and they said, and that banner actually said, if you are looking for coding and testing, this is not the job for you. And I signed up. I signed up, and that interview process was quite long, and it actually involved developing training material and delivering that training material on technology. Most of the rounds was basically sharing what you've developed into with a small set of audience, and they would gauge you on different things. So yeah, that's how I
So
got to
that's pretty
technical
interesting.
training development.
So both of you really teaching others is really your calling, and you started in computer science, and we're able ultimately to blend the two. Linda, did you enjoy your days coding? I don't know what language you coded at Capital One, but did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was a variety of languages. I did enjoy it, but there was one particular day where I was like leading like the orientation for new software engineers, and I was like, it was a Friday afternoon and everyone was still engaged. This was in 2020, so like
Yeah.
everything's virtual, and just like delivering that live session, I felt like I really came alive, and I was like, I like
Oh,
this so
I see.
more.
That's
Yeah,
what you wanted to do, not
yeah,
not spending hours behind a screen
right,
typing
right.
code. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Anyone, if you have questions for Rika and Linda, type on the chat. We're going to take another one here um, from Immaculate Aesthetics, which is in DC, I think. Do we learn cloud concepts in the cloud full stack bootcamp? And so, quick answer, yes. That's actually where we integrate most of the Google Labs. It's called Google Skills Labs, correct? And it's going to teach you cloud, and it's going to teach you Firebase as well. So yes, plenty of cloud concepts and actually hands-on in the cloud on the full stack bootcamp. And I've never seen Ludovic written this way. That's actually, how is that the first time I'm seeing Ludovic with a QUE at the end? All right. Well, welcome, welcome, Ludovic. Um, so how how did you get into Google though? I mean, there's one thing to learn to code, have a computer science degree. It's another thing completely to get a job at Google. Um, and I understand that wasn't your first company, right? That you worked for. Can you explain to us how you go from your first job to landing that position at Google? Rika, let's start with you this time.
For me, my first job was a technical training developer. I think that's what my job role was. I was developing tech trainings at EMC, which got acquired now called Dell EMC. That's how I started my career. I was onboarded, and we were going through a rigorous boot camp of 3 months where they were teaching us all technical concepts. I think that's where I got more familiarized with what cloud technology in general was. And Because we were career starters there, we had this goal of doing a tech certification every quarter. So by I think 2 years that I've spent in that organization, I had 7 technical certification at various levels, because we had to do that as part of the role. I think that made my technical skills build quite stronger. Quite confident with what the concepts were. Then I moved on to another hyperconverged infrastructure company, which was Nutanix. I served there for another 3 years as again education specialist, doing technical training. But there, I think I got exposure on various audiences. I was not just doing internal trainings. I was doing sales, enablement. Internal partner based, a lot of variety of trainings that I was exposed to. And then I think it was during 2020, end of 2020, I decided I think maybe I need to take a break, and I quit my old role. And I was looking for, after I took some break, I was looking for more opportunities, and I actually applied on jobs.google.com while I was skimming through roles and opportunities that were relevant to my role. I did not know that role was based off in Dublin either back
Oh,
then. I applied, and that evening I got a call. It was an international number, which I generally don't pick unknown numbers. And surprisingly, I thought, I don't know why, but I picked that number, and it was a call from the recruiter. It said, "Hey, we have shortlisted you," and I did not believe. I really thought it was a spam call,
really?
because a number that I did not recognize. But then eventually, here I am. My path to Google was basically applying to that role on jobs.google.com.
That's awesome. Congratulations. How about you, Linda? How did you
Yeah.
get to Google?
So I so appreciate hearing this side of Rika's story. I hadn't heard it before, and we've worked together for almost 2 years. But a similar experience where for me, it was in 2021, I kind of realized, hey, I want to do something different career wise. So I quit my job and I just sort of started exploring new things. And at the time, I'd done a bit of freelancing work for just like a cloud training company. And that opportunity I found on LinkedIn. Literally, I followed the company on LinkedIn, and they happened to make a post. We're looking for, people with cloud certifications to write some certification practice questions for our learners. And so, I did that, and I realized that, on top of the previous training experience I had, that was like another thing that kind of made me um, gave me exposure to the training role. And so then I just eventually, when I realized it's time to make a change, I went on the Google Careers website and just filtered by jobs in DC and looked at everything they had there. I hadn't yet narrowed in on training as what I wanted to do next.
Mhm.
But then I saw I hadn't even we had like I'd worked at organizations that had technical curriculum developers, but their titles were still like software engineer.
Yeah.
So I didn't even conceptually, I wasn't really used to, I was familiar with the idea of training, but I thought of like compliance trainings, like where
Yeah.
you're told like what to do, how to evacuate the building in an emergency and that kind of
I've
thing.
done those as well. Like 10 years or 15 years ago, I was, yeah. I've looked at, and yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah.
Right, right. Um, but then I saw the curriculum development role, and I was like, oh, okay. Like I have done, a lot of the things that are
Mhm.
listed here, and I think I would really enjoy transitioning into this role as a full time thing. So I applied. Yeah.
That's really cool. Congrats. Yeah, Rika?
I think it's a common misunderstanding when we say curriculum developers. I think the first question I get is it documentation? Is it compliance training? Is it the mandatory training that we take as part of the organization? I think very few people are aware that there is a technical enablement and training teams that run these.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I think the learning from me, from both your experiences, is the journey into a big tech company like Google is not necessarily one that will have you, graduate from college and then boom, you get a job at Google or you get a job at Amazon or Microsoft. The most likely path and the most likely scenario for most people is going to be you're going to build out your experience first. You're going to figure out what you really want to do. And then you're going to apply, and your background, your passion is going to really get you that first job at Google. And I say that because for everyone, for most people joining a coding bootcamp, they some of them have that idea that, hey, that's my path to get a job at Google right after that, or get a job at Microsoft right after that, or Facebook. When the reality is, yes, it's a path, but it's not going to be 6 months after you graduate or a year. You're more likely to get a job at a local tech company, become a developer, build experience, and then 2 years, 3 years after that, apply to that position at those big tech companies and be then way more likely to get a job at that moment in time. So I think it's kind of an expectation to say that um, it's always possible to get that position at the big tech, but it's so much easier if you actually have some background and experience before that. Um, let's go back to the questions. There's been a bunch here, a few people joining and saying hi as well. Um, one for you, Linda, since it's DC based. Do you know any places in DC to get hands-on experience or internships?
That's a good question. Off head, I can't say that I have any good recommendations, but for me, I found it. I've haven't gone to one in a while, but I used to go to a lot of just like technology meetups, and I
Mhm.
found that as a good way to network with people.
Yeah.
So if you go to meetup.com and filter by whatever particular subject you're interested in, so front end development or DevOps or whatever, you can see events. A lot of times they have free food, so like you might get a free dinner out of it, and you can listen to
Free
someone give
pizza.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
give a technical talk and just speak to the other attendees there to get a sense of what they do in their jobs and get
Yeah.
exposure.
Networking is key.
Yeah.
especially nowadays with how tough it is to get your first job. If you can network and engage with people, in person, that's always going to be a benefit to you. Hey, Jason, pleased to have you here. Thanks for being here. Hey, Michelle, same thing. Thanks for being here. And then Jason has a question here, maybe more for me. Is it possible to find a job such as a junior developer or an internship while doing classes in NewCamp, or are employers looking for someone who has finished the bootcamp first? My answer to that will be employers are looking for people that have the skills. So it's really depending. Do you have the skills while doing the bootcamp? Meaning, have you acquired skills before, and maybe are you just adding to those skills? But it's not so much have you finished or not the bootcamp. It's very much, do you have the skills? Uh, and if you have those skills, you can seek that internship or that developer, or when you feel you have done enough in the bootcamp to have acquired enough skills. Like if we have a bootcamp that's 11 months long, which is every bootcamp we have actually, and so I would say 9 months into that, you probably have accumulated enough skills to start to look for a job or an internship. What do you think, Linda and Rika?
I felt like you captured that as far as just like taking a skills based approach toward things.
Great. And then so let me look at that. More questions here. Uh, how beneficial would it be in terms of skill set to have a technical college background as opposed to someone who doesn't and does the NewCamp program? So I think this question is very much, in a sense, computer science degree versus bootcamp graduate. That's how I interpret it. Are you working with people with non-traditional education and that are in tech? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Um, yeah, I don't. I feel like our team has a really wide range of people with backgrounds. Like, I think we have a teammate who was also a political science major, but I think still took some computer science. May have still taken computer science during college. Some folks who've done different types of like engineering and science. Had another team member whose background was in more so on the instructional design
Yeah,
part of like from a degree perspective, but then they still had technical skills in other ways. So I think in our role, people can come in from a wide variety of backgrounds. Like I don't know that I use the skills that I learned in computer science courses, like data structures and discrete mathematics, in my day-to-day role. But still having an overall broad technical foundation is pretty helpful.
great.
I think a
Rika?
college degree would always serve as a very nice background to get an overview of all the things that is involved in technology. It gives you a bit of algorithms, it gives you a bit of math, it gives you a bit of everything when you do a college degree. But having on top of that a nice credential, which it's going to shine on your resume. When it comes to unconventional roles, I think, yeah, like Linda mentioned, we have people from various backgrounds who've been doing these roles. We have people with non-technical degrees and people with PhDs also working in the same team.
Yeah,
We were a good mix of a varied range of knowledge there. I also had a teammate, I remember, who was a MSc in psychology but was doing technical training development. So yeah.
awesome. Thank you. Jason had a follow-up question. We're going to take that one, and then we're going to take the one from Ludovic as well. Um, I've been applying for developer jobs like crazy. Am I wasting my time doing this before I finish the boot camp? And that's Jason who asked about um, finding an internship while doing the boot camp. I'll answer that one. I think, yeah, you probably, again, measure yourself based on skills. Do you have the skills to apply to the job? And if you don't, chances are you may actually be burning your opportunity for that position and maybe that company. I will make sure that, yeah, you're not spending too much time, and apparently you are like crazy applying for jobs that you're not qualified for, because yeah, you're gonna run out of juice, and you may not be able to apply to those jobs when you actually have the skills. So yeah, I think you want to rethink that again, depending on the skills you have. And so this one is a kind of a follow up to the conversation we just had about different backgrounds. And that's a question that's in a lot of people's mind when they are, career shifters, someone who never was never educated in tech and is wondering, okay, can I actually become part of that tech movement? Um, how hard is it, you think, let's say at any age, to learn tech, to learn to code, to learn cloud, to learn DevOps, to learn all that? And how do you know? How do you know that you're going to be able to learn it and then you're going to be able to build the skills for it?
That's a good question. I'm trying to, I mean, I'm trying to think how best to answer that. I mean, like if you've been, I being self-taught means different. Can mean a range of things. You know, for some people, being self-taught could mean I designed my own curriculum and I've been leveraging all of these free resources. For some people, it could mean I've just been tinkering, in my code editor and seeing what works. So it kind of depends. But I do think that people can understand these topics without having had a previous technical background or having had a computer science degree, but it might be helpful to learn in community. So whether it's in person meetups like meetup.com that I'd mentioned earlier. I'm seeing a question here, but it was like meetup.com, for instance, or like going on web forums and things like that. Can help to just learn, like have people to ask questions to. So you're not learning alone; you're learning in community.
Yes. Plus one to everything that Linda said. I think she wonderfully answered that question. Like that person is also asking, is it really hard to learn and understand it? I think it's definitely not. A lot of people can quickly get started with a lot of programming languages, and today internet has a lot of avenues for you to self-learn things. A simple Coursera subscription can also help you around there. Like I think Linda mentioned, community learning and peer learning, a lot of avenues and opportunities. There are a lot of people whom I've seen and meet at Google who come from non-technical degrees but still doing tech roles. They have picked up technology pretty fast with labs and things. Things you even get hands-on experience to do things which sometimes even at college you wouldn't get that hands-on experience.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll add to that as well that a lot of people wonder about it, also fear math. And they actually, that's sometimes the first question we get is, do I have to be kind of an expert in math? And they really associate being a coder or web developer with being expert in math. And the answer to that is no. So you don't have to be a math genius or a physics genius. You have to have a logical mind, but it doesn't mean that you have to, be really good at math. And I would say, Ludovic, that if you're enjoying learning Python and HTML and you're feeling that it's clicking with you, right? It's all about, do you feel like you're learning it and that you're understanding it? Because if that's how you feel as you're doing it yourself, you can probably learn it. Like you're seeing it working for you. So it's actually a self-check almost, where it will be different if you were trying to learn yourself Python HTML and you were not able to understand it, right? If it was kind of if you had a blank stare anytime you were trying to then do something in Python or HTML, well, maybe that's a sign that it's not working for you. But if instead, when you learn, and that's especially when you're doing the exercises yourself, is it clicking? Do you find it? Does it come to you? And if it does, that means you're internalizing the concepts, and that means, yeah, you should be able to learn and build the skills. Um, let's see. So, uh, oh, there's a question for you from Charissa. Who wants to take that one? How does instructional design differ from technical curriculum development?
I could take that because
Yeah.
closely been trained on instructional design. In simple terms, Shirisha, instructional design is how you can put together a training. It covers a lot of concepts that cover how adults learn, how do you present content to learners, how do you design a training, what goes into training development and delivery. The ADDIE model that we see in software development is actually applied in training development as well. So concepts around how to structure your training is covered. It doesn't cover technology. Instructional design appears to overall how trainings are being executed. Whereas technical curriculum development is actually implementing it, but with technical concepts. You're going to present technical training by doing analysis. There's something called as needs analysis, where we understand what the learner needs are, what are we trying to bridge the gap between what they know versus what they want to know. And then actually putting together a design for the training, very much similar to software development, actually. Designing the product, here the product is training, but in software development, it's the software product.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation. I would just also tack on that depending on your organization, sometimes those two roles can be merged into one, or
Mhm.
it just kind of depends on the size of the organization or how it's structured.
Makes sense. There's a follow-up question from Michael, and then I have a question for you as well. Are there opportunities to teach with NewCamp? Yes, yes, there are. Um, we have already a lot of instructors, but we always welcome new talented instructors. So if you want to try it, reach out to, I'll say, pretty much info@newcamp.co, or just email me, ludo@newcamp.co, and we'll get you in touch. So the question I have for both of you is around AI. Um, One area that everybody says AI is going to have a huge impact on is education. Um, in providing personalized tutors to students, for example, uh, and then in the industry, the instructional designer industry, the curriculum developer industry, I know I've seen some comments online of people wondering, well, is AI going to replace curriculum development? Like, are we going to need instructional design or curriculum developers in the future? Can AI do that? The question to you is, how is AI helping your job? And how do you see AI place in the future in pretty much building courses and creating, engaging content for students?
So,
Linda, yeah.
yeah, I'll just speak kind of broadly and say that you know, when it comes to AI or any kind of automation or technology, it I think it creates opportunities to assist humans, and improve their efficiency at certain tasks. Um, when you think about curriculum development, kind of broadly, like at the industry kind of level or at the function level, there are a lot of applications. As you mentioned, like sort of smart tutor, or maybe being able to write assessment questions, or being able to generate scripts or things. A lot of possible applications that AI can take. I think in this world of like generative AI specifically, there's still those concerns industry wide about like hallucinations and reliability and those sorts of things. So it's important to be mindful of those things. Not sure if Rika has anything to tack on.
Yeah, I think I'll answer to if this AI is going to take away the role. The answer is no, I think, to any role. It would probably take away the mundane tasks that we do in any roles that are labor intensive and stuff that is not something that is possible. I don't think it would. That's the short answer. It does aid in doing things. It's definitely simplified how we've approached certain aspects of training development, or it might actually aid in it, but definitely not replace.
Great. Yeah, we've had a few tries as well. I mean, we have a AI tutor. We've been dabbling in, to your point, video production scripts, things like that, and it's pretty cumbersome. It's pretty challenging to really build something and bring AI part of your workflow. It's always something you're going to do on the side and you're going to tinker with it. I don't think. I mean, I haven't seen yet, and that may happen in the next few years, a curriculum development workflow that will really fully integrate AI and make all those mundane tasks easier for you. I think we've have yet to see that happening. Um, when when you think about um, your role at Google right now, um, what would be your advice to an aspiring developer or career changer who wants to learn the cloud or learn to code? What would be your advice in terms of the learning path they should follow? How does someone pretty much should think about getting started in building the skills um, in your mind?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Rika.
No, no, I was just going to ask Ludo if he wants to pick both of.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well,
Go
go for
ahead.
it, Rika. Go for it, Rika.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I would say for tech curriculum, I believe the question is to how get started with doing the role that we're doing, is to start doing, I think, certifications to familiarize with Google Cloud concepts. That would be the first step to get to the technical development.
Do
If
you
you're
know what would be the very first certification to look after? What, like, if you think about the skill stack, and where should you start? Which one do you think is the most accessible at first?
definitely, I think time to promote Cloud Digital Leader. That's first training. If you're really new to Google Cloud, Cloud Digital Leader is the first certification I would recommend for people who are not too familiar with cloud technology.
Can you say that again? I'm gonna find it on Google. Cloud. What is the name?
Cloud Digital Leader.
Cloud Digital Leader. That's kind of the level 100.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
found it. Let me paste it into the chat.
Yeah. So that training and certification would provide you with a broad-based understanding of Google Cloud, the cloud in general, the value, like the business value that you kind of unlock when you pursue digital transformation and cloud adoption. So definitely helpful. I would say particularly for my role because the training I create, like it's still technical, but it caters to a broad base of people who may not be developers,
Mhm.
compared to Rika's training that I think is definitely more so aimed at developers and engineers.
Great. And another question for you regarding your career. So, given where your background and what you've done before, your technical background, and now your background in learning, how do you envision yourself in the next 5 years? Like, where do you see yourself going at Google or outside of Google in that role of that? I would say the learning space, and is that still going to be the learning space? Oh,
I think
yeah,
what
you can tell we're in Dublin, huh? They're like shutting off the lights and everything. Thank you for joining so late, by the way, Rika.
Not a problem, not a problem. I'll let Linda answer
sure,
one
sure.
time. I'll fix the light situation here.
Yeah. So I mean, Google's such a large company, and there are so many different opportunities in the learning space. And technical learning included. So I think for me, it's just taking advantage of the opportunities we have here to like learn about different teams and like network internally, um, is kind of what I'm focused on, and just like continuing to pursue curiosity. Like
Mhm.
pivoting from software development to curriculum development a couple years ago. was like, okay, like just pursuing, what I'm curious about, learning about these different models, like Rekha talked about, like ADDIE or agile curriculum development. And yeah, so I think for me it's just very much like continuing to just like pursue curiosity and see what's around.
Um, to me, I think training as a huge is quite broad. It starts with assessment. You need to be able to understand what learners you're trying to cater to, and there is in few organizations that are actually um, very much learning providers. There you even have roles like learning architects, very similar to cloud architect, which is the most senior most role that you could have. Roles like learning architect is something that I am shooting for 5 years down the lane, if doing the responsibilities that are very similar to that particular role, but definitely in the tech field. That way I have more opportunities to learn. I think this is the role where there's constant learning. You are constantly learning new concepts. You get first hands-on experience with some product features and functionalities. So yeah, that's the role.
Thank you. And we're seeing a follow up to Ludovic's question here. That's conversation we just had on, can I actually learn without having a background in tech? And so Ludovic is saying, so it is exactly what I'm going through sometimes while self teaching. When things are not working as I would like them, I feel like I'm going to drop it off. Um, and there's another one just here. There we go. It's the reason I'm looking for an in-person bootcamp here in Tacoma to help me. Um, so I think Linda, you kind of said you said it earlier. It's very challenging to learn on your own. For those moments where not everything is working, especially in tech. Actually, most of the time, things are not going to work in tech. Meaning, you're going to have a bug, and you're going to spend hours trying to figure out what it is, and you're going to feel terrible while the bug is still there and you're not finding the solution. So definitely looking for help and being part of a community and a group. And I'm seeing Sharissa was wondering, Sharissa is in Tacoma as well, actually Tacoma, Washington. Um, it doesn't have to be in person, although that helps. But I think you have plenty of communities online. And if I just speak for NewCamp for a sec, we have classrooms with an instructor and students, small classroom size of 15. And so you'll be able then to really find that support and help you have someone really help you with those moments where you feel like it's not clicking. What are your thoughts? Maybe, and we're gonna this maybe actually the parting thoughts, and then we have Anuja saying Sheriza does amazing workshops. So maybe yeah, maybe Ludovic you can join one of Sheriza's workshop. How about that? Right in Tacoma. What are your thoughts? On that concept of learning on your own, struggling, finding a community. Did you experience that yourself? By the way, were you ever in places where you really felt like being on your own was not going to work out, and you looked for an environment that will provide the support?
Yeah, I think for me, definitely in college, as that was the first time where I was getting exposed to certain concepts for the first time, it was definitely important to acquire that foundational knowledge, with other people. As I've progressed in my career and gotten exposure to more things, I'm better able to like, uh, like Google something, right? Know how
Yeah,
to phrase the question.
yeah.
What question am I asking, or ask a colleague, right, and have a very clear understanding of where am I stuck. But yeah, it's challenging to learn things for the first time, right? Especially things that are so unlike anything you've been exposed to before. But at the same time, when you finally get your code to work or an idea clicks in your head, it can be really exciting as well.
Mhm.
So I just encourage folks to look out for that excitement they feel and that curiosity when things work and make sense.
Yep.
Rika, anything you want to add?
I think keeping an open mind, it is definitely challenging, especially for concepts that are very new. I've always leaned on, very much like Linda, I've leaned on mentorship. I had amazing mentors in my first company and even at my college, who helped me understand things while I was stuck. So I think um, I would request the person to not lose hope. It's There's always light at the end of the tunnel, and when you reach there, it's gonna feel amazing. And yeah,
Yeah, no, I want to echo that. That feeling of helplessness can happen quite often at the very beginning because there's so much that you don't know, and you actually start to realize how wide the industry is, the tech industry is, and how much there is to know. But it does get better as you persevere, as you learn more things. You're feeling less and less helpless when you're faced with new challenges. I think to your point, that you know that you're going to get through it eventually, and you have more confidence in yourself that you're going to be able to go over that hump because you've done it before. But you have to suffer through, in a way, you have to suffer through those first 6, 9, 1 year where you constantly challenge because you're learning new things, and it goes better. Yeah, it gets better. It gets better. Hey, so as I said, it goes very fast. We're already at the end of the hour. Linda and Rika, I really, really want to thank you again for joining the show. It was very inspirational to hear you talk about your journey into learning and technical curriculum development. I hope the audience has a better understanding of what it means to be a technical curriculum developer and building learning experiences for others. Do you have any last final words that you want to, or words of wisdom for the audience that you would like to share before we say goodbye?
I'm trying to think. I feel like that last question kind of summed up
That's right.
a lot of my perspective as far as just hang in there, be curious, ask questions, rely on ask other people as well.
same. I think for me, it's what I heard. What was the words of wisdom that I've heard from my mentors is to continue to keep learning. The moment you stop learning is when your career also stops growing. Is one sentence I've always heard from my mentor. And also, thank you so much for the opportunity, Ludo. It was really great being part of this and meeting you.
I appreciate. So stay on. We're gonna terminate the stream, but stay on, Linda and Rika. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you very soon.